Okay.
Hi, I'm Steve Calabrese. That's Tim Gritzman. We want to talk about a perplexing issue in the industry called proprietary blends. Tim, what is a proprietary blend?
I like that you said perplexing. It was good. Proprietary blend is a way for a company to conceal the precise doses of what they're using, the ingredients they're using, underneath this protective layer of, they're going to say it's for intellectual property, or so people don't knock off their stuff, to put it in like layman's terms. So if we had 5 ingredients and each of them had 1 gram, for ease of example, one way to do it, the full disclosure, full transparency way, the opposite of proprietary blend would be just to list each of the 5 ingredients and say 1 gram, 1 gram, 1 gram, 1 gram. The proprietary blend way would be to put those same 5 ingredients and then just say there's 5 grams of these 5 things. Mm-hmm. And what that takes away from the consumer is they then don't know if the first ingredient in that list has 4.9 grams and then the rest of them only have 250 milligrams, because the math would still equal 5 grams. So the only, I believe, and this is not necessarily the actual nitty-gritty fine-grained labeling laws. I would defer to someone like let's say Mark from Nutria Bio. It's not my area of expertise, but I believe the only law that has to be upheld in that context is that it has to go in descending order. So you couldn't put the ingredient that has 250 milligrams at the top. That would have to be at the bottom. But other than that, you can conceal the whole thing in a blend that says 5 grams.
So the most at the top, the least at the bottom.
Yeah.
Now, we spoke about this when you first joined me. I don't know if you remember, but your stance on this was the same then that it is now. What is your stance on proprietary blends?
Well, okay, so I think that the vast majority of the market doesn't care, and maybe those are the ones that should care, but people in the forums that like you and I would frequent get very bent out of shape out of this, because they are what we would consider like advanced supplement users, people that care a disproportionate amount. It's the difference between, the analogy I often use is like if the layperson goes and changes their oil, they just give the keys to the guy and say, hey, just put regular oil in there, call me when it's done, or I'm going to go sit in the lobby, versus the car enthusiast that's underneath the hood tinkering with his own stuff. The vast majority of people that walk in our stores, for better or worse, I'm not putting a judgment on that, they just don't care. They want energy for the workout. They have a problem, a very simple problem that needs to be solved. They want to feel more energetic. Then on the other end of the spectrum are these like expert and pseudo-expert and dilettante, like people, connoisseurs that love ingredients, and they need, these are people that maybe try to concoct their own pre-workout, or they just want the comfort and the peace of mind knowing that if it has 2.5 milligrams of bioperine, that's what it has. They don't want any of that obscured from them. So my stance number one is the vast majority of the market, even though it's fun to analyze consumer behavior, these people that are debating proprietary blends don't usually accept the fact that the vast majority of the market doesn't care. These are your C4 buyers, people like that. They just have a first order problem that needs to be solved. My second, maybe more nuanced position is that people care way too much about the proprietary blends. It's not that I'm I'm not. All other things being equal, I will take the fully disclosed transparent label. It's that this is almost like a red herring of, they get really mad at that thing and they don't consider the pre-workout as a whole. So for example, and this is what prompted the whole video, I was looking at a forum and someone said something to the effect of, and they were talking about the forthcoming Chemix from the Gorilla Chemist. They said, well, that looks like it could be a great pre-workout, but I guess we'll never know because it's a proprietary blend. And I just, that comment just, I found to be abhorrent. That's an absurd position to take, I think. That is the part that I'm philosophically opposed to. That if it's a proprietary blend, then do not pass go, do not collect $200, don't even consider it in your attention sphere as a consumer. And I find that position to be untenable or unreasonable, right? And I've likened this to like you and I, if you go to the restaurant, we don't put a loaded gun to the chef's head and say, we will not pay for this meal unless you tell us down to the milligram how you made it.
Now, I think this kind of originated with Nutria Bio a few years back, where and I love the guys at Nutria Bio, not Nutria Bio, I'm sorry, at Price Plow, who was behind the Nutria Bio brand of products, and they were talking about proprietary blends, and I kind of disagreed in the fact that I've seen so many brands release products with proprietary blends to keep them almost private in a way where other people couldn't copy their formulas. And I've been doing this so long that I've seen so many great products under the proprietary blend umbrella be released and create so many positive experiences.
I mean, all of them, right? Whatever the Jacked 3D, Oxy Elite Pro, C4, some of these legendary products, and C4 got like half disclosed as the product went through its life cycle. Like now you have like the beta alanine, the creatine nitrate, and then like the arginine, whatever they're using. Those are disclosed, but the stimulant blend, and this is a new tactic that's actually to tie the two together. That's what the Guerrilla Chemist product is doing. Chemex. It has like the performance ingredients disclosed, and then the stimulant blend proprietary. But not to lose your point, all of the legendary, I can't think of a legendary product in the industry that was transparent. Again, that's not to say that the transparency is wrong. It's just that I think again these people, these pundits that are debating this stuff online have taken a position that's too far exaggerated, and they're sort of like, the problem is this is now being adopted by consumers. Like people are coming onto the Flyby, they're coming onto our Instagram, they're coming into our Instagram inbox, and they're saying, well, I would never buy that. That's a proprietary blend. And I mean, I take, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I probably have a bit more expert knowledge than they do, and I don't perceive it that way. I don't go, well, you know, I would consider buying that, but I'm sorry, I just can't. It's a proprietary blend.
So if the Guerrilla Chemist is creating, who is actually a real chemist, correct?
Yeah, he has a master's in, I think it's biochem, but definitely chemistry.
So if the Guerrilla Chemist is creating his own brand of supplements and he wants it to be a proprietary blend, then that's something we shouldn't put in as negative, or in our minds immediately.
Yeah, well, look, I think that, like, I made the example on, we'll get there in a second, but okay, first off, I think there is a bit too much fear that your formulas are going to be stolen. Like, that's usually what these companies hold up, and I think they kind of know it's an excuse. They'll say, well, we don't want to disclose the formula because someone's going to knock it off. And that is maybe a valid concern, if you're like a very small company, and you're afraid that you've uncovered the next Oxy Elite, Synadrex, something, right? Bruce Neller. Well, there's a good example. I guarantee you, his new ingredient, he won't tell anyone what it is because people would immediately knock it off.
And that's a thermogenic. For those out there that don't know that. Right.
And depending on when you watch this video, that was teased, I think, at the Olympia last year. So, how did we get here? I lost my thread.
We were talking about the Guerrilla Chemist covering his ass with the proprietary blend.
So let's talk about reasons companies do use. That was one. They don't want their formula knocked off or stolen. And I think that happens to some extent. Like, everybody's using ashwagandha now, KSM-66, but there's nothing, like, that's like an ingredient. That's not a stimulant blend. But you and I remember the heyday of Synadrex, let's say. When I first came here, Synadrex was $45 for 45 pills. That was $1 a pill. There are some very hefty markup being put into that product, mostly on the side of the company. It wasn't you and I running all the way to the bank with Synadrex or laughing all the way to the bank. It was metabolic, and that's not a bad thing. I think they deserve to be, compensated for having a product that was so adored by everyone. But this is kind of like propping up my first point that the vast majority of the market doesn't care. People didn't care it was in Synadrex. It just turned off their appetite. They were forking over $45 without a second glance because they just said, okay, this product solves my problem. I mean, it used to be like a joke. It was like, what else are you doing for your diet? And they're like, no, I don't want any of that. Just give me the Synadrex. And we're like, well, hey, man, you should really consider like protein. Yeah. But that's kind of what I mean. Like the vast majority of the market didn't care. Is that was a proprietary blend was sort of the problem or the point I was making. But yes, I could see where if you were sitting on that formula, if you were Jay from Metabolic and you had what was the estimated Europa number, something like 50,000 bottles a month or something. Maybe I'm thinking of Oxy Elite, but it was like an absurd number. If you had that in your corner, you would not want BSN, optimum, a big company with a lot of more resources than you to copy and paste your formula. Yeah. But again, this is almost inverted. So what's coming out now is there are a lot of very small companies that probably run 144 bottles at a time of their new pre-workout, companies that most people have never heard of, and they're saying, well, you should buy my product because it doesn't have a proprietary blend. And this is, I guess, part 2 of my criticism, is that people no longer care. I don't know if they ever cared, but they should care where the product was made, how it was made, who made it for them. And most consumers don't care about any of those things, and they only care about, is it a proprietary blend or not. So now you have all these like upstart young companies that basically may be going off the grid to a unscrupulous manufacturing house that's willing to make 72 units at a run and saying, well, yeah, but buy mine because it doesn't have a proprietary blend. And again, I just think we have the priorities backwards.
I have one last question.
Go ahead.
As far as proprietary blends, everyone focuses on the fat burning and pre-workout end of the industry. But these proprietary blends occur in all types of products. Protein powders, intra-workout, post-workout, multivitamins. Why is it that the focus seems solely on that aspect of the industry?
Well, okay, so I'm probably more pro proprietary blends in like protein because I consider it more like a foodstuff, and I think Nutria Bio is like the bellwether there. They're leading the way. Like one thing that soothes me as a consumer when I buy my protein is I can look at a Nutria Bio protein and say, okay, well, they're using this much sunflower lecithin, they're using this much xanthan gum, this much sucralose, or like they will tell you the flavoring, how they made the flavor, which is that level of transparency is seen almost nowhere else. But I kind of look at that like I'm buying like a food product. Protein is essentially a food. I think when you have these stimulants you're talking about, there's inherently more markup in them, so people make money this way. That's why they want to protect their intellectual property. But on the other side of that coin, what you're saying is that there's pressure to remove them because I think there's inherently more risk. This is the point I was kind of making. Like, I don't take this protein and go, oh, well, not sure how much alpha yohimbines in here, so hopefully I make it through the workout. It's a protein. But that's a reasonable concern. I don't know if my fat burner has 200 milligrams caffeine or 500. That is also a reasonable concern. I think that concern is far more reasonable to want to know the stimulants that you're ingesting. So you see, actually, this is a behavior also I'm in favor of, is that like companies will have a proprietary blend, but they'll say, okay, there's 350 caffeine. And I think that helps the consumer benchmark the overall stim profile without the company having to put their cards on the table completely.
So almost like the amount of energy they expect to gain from the product.
I mean, that's really the main concern when you take a stimulant is like how much caffeine is in here. Once you know that part, you can almost like safely deduce the rest, I think.
Okay. I believe those were some incredible points, and that'll be an educative experience for a lot of people out there.
Well, I don't know if we have a thundering point here. It's other than the fact that, like, I don't think the industry's gone too far past a reasonable stance. You should not buy supplements that say, oh, if it's a proprietary blend, just don't buy it. I just find this, again, to be an unreasonable position. And I don't know if we really got into why that is, but just every other industry in the world runs on intellectual property. Like Apple has the most intellectual property of any publicly traded company, I believe. And they also are the most profitable. At least in, I think, 2016, they were the most profitable company in the history of the world ever. So intellectual property powers our technology companies. And then people will say, oh, well, I've heard this criticism. They'll say, oh, well, that, we're not eating our iPhones. These are things going in our body. But then I made that example earlier. I kind of like took one of my big points and put it on the table earlier in this conversation. But like in the food industry, people don't demand to know the recipes at restaurants, or even like
that's a good point.
Yeah, like if you buy like a pizza from Whole Foods or something, or the grocery store, it'll tell you like the order the ingredients are in, that descending order thing, but it doesn't say like mozzarella cheese 4.62 grams. Okay, and people don't care about that. They care where the food was from. This is my thing. I'm drawing a parallel to the foodie world. It's farm to table. It's grass fed. It's local. You see how people are more concerned about those things, the sourcing of the ingredients, how it was handled, were the animals treated ethically even, more than they're worried about like the OCD disclosure of the down to the milligram recipe. So I think we can draw some inspiration from that industry and maybe say that I would love to see the industry go in that direction, which is like people they'll rip apart a product or not, or they'll laud it and say, wow, this is such a good product. And we don't know if it was made in a bathtub in New Jersey or if it was made at, you know, the pristine halls of whatever is considered the top. See, like, I don't even know that. I've been employed in the industry for a decade. I can't hold up to you and say this is the best manufacturing house in the country. Maybe Nutria Bio, I don't know, but they don't even remanufacture. They only manufacture their own stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure the people that know more about this would be like, Tim, that you're so far off with it. That's the problem. I'm an expert consumer. I have no idea where these things are made for the most part. And I don't know which manufacturing houses would be considered good ones and bad ones. I have a rough idea, and it's taken me 10 years to get there. They have no idea, but they're going to buy a pre-workout made by, you know, Joe Schmo trainer entrepreneur because it's a fully disclosed proprietary blend, a lack of proprietary blend.
Great information. Everybody could absorb a lot from what's been said here, and I think that's all she wrote. This is Steve Calabrese. That's
Tim Gritzman.
And we will see you on the next edition of Industry News. Maybe that's what we call it.